Welcome back. In this lecture, we're going to talk about deleting the book. So how do you delete a book? Well, you select this and you just press delete and it deletes it. How does it do that? First thing we're going to do is make a delete book dialog. We're going to make a dialog and it's going to be very similar to this. In fact, we'll be copy paste of this, just a different name, which is UI delete dialog here. And here just delete dialog, whatever the main class of your name, dialog. Same here. As you can see, now it should be working just fine. Well, pretty cool. Now we're going to make a function. We're going to call it delete book, and it's called whenever you click on delete. So delete is going to take a table in, just like the one we created before. And it's going to do the same thing here. It's going to see which row is selected, table.current row. It's going to get the current row back, and it's going to say, well, if the current row is not -1, which means that you have selected something, you have selected nothing. If it is -1, we have showed you before that if you select nothing, it is -1. And then we're going to get the book ID, just like the previous one. So we can copy paste it if you want to, but I'm not going to do that for this one. Table.item, we can get the selected row, and the 0th value is the ID, of course, and then the text back, convert it into integer. Now we're going to create a dialog just like that, just like before. It's going to be called delete dialog again. And well, what else here? Well, when you accept it, when you press OK, well, first of all, let me just execute this and show you that it actually works. And when will it work? When we have connected it with the main window. So self.delete dialog, I think that's what it's called. If I go back to the main screen, it's delete unissued or delete issued. So if it is delete issued dot pressed or clicked, pressed when you totally press it, and clicked is when you just click it without releasing. And if you connect it, again, I'm gonna have to do this in a way where you are passing a lambda expression because we're passing the table alongside, and it's issued books table, and that's it. And it's good to group them together, group the code together in a way that, well, all my issued books code is here and all my unissued books code is here, and I can change the name here to unissued. Same here. If I press delete, nothing happens. Now it asks me if you want to delete this. I press OK, nothing happens because, well, nothing will happen. Same thing here. If I press this, nothing will happen. Well, I want something to happen. I want it to delete. How do I do that? Well, first thing is that when you press OK, that's when I want to delete. So dialog.ui.buttonbox. And when it is accepted, that means you really want to delete it. And that's where the magic will happen. What magic? I will create a function here called the delete book. You can create it anywhere. I can create it at the end. I'll create a function called delete book, and this will go to my file system and it will delete it. So I will load books first, all of my books, and then I will filter them based on the ID that you just gave me. First, let's filter it, then we'll convert it into a list. Filter it how? Filter it from the books, and on what criteria? Remember, we pass in a function like a lambda expression, and which one specific book, it'll be BK. And what is the criteria? You're giving it a boolean. It is equal to the ID that you passed in and bk.id, of course. bk.id equals the ID that you passed in as an integer. and now everything should work just fine. You have to convert it into a list though, so I'm gonna convert it into a list right here by using list method. Now, well, we have made a books list which has basically the book ID that shouldn't be equal to the book ID, which is not equal to the book ID. Now I just want to save it. I will call the save books method, which takes in all the books and just writes them directly to my disk. And now I can connect it. So I will of course call the lambda expression, because remember what we're doing here, we are actually passing something alongside. And what you can do, another thing here, let me tell you, you can, instead of passing a lambda expression, you can define this function in a way that there is a function inside this function. That will work as well. So delete book function you're passing in, you will call the function and it will return the function inside. It's not that complicated. So you're deleting a book, you're passing an ID. What do you pass in as the ID? Of course, the ID that you saved, book-id, and that's about it. This should work just fine. Let's run. Well, before deleting, I want to do one more thing here. I want to load these tables. Just after it's deleted, I want to load them. So, for example, right here, when we edited a book, we execute it afterwards. I want to do it after execution. That's more interesting. And I have already copied them, so I can just paste it right here. Let's see what happens. You will see that if I delete this, press OK, it's deleted. Pretty neat. That's all there is to it. Now all books, same thing. We're gonna create a refresh function in the next lecture. I can delete this as well, but I won't. I can delete healthy habits. Press OK, it's deleted. And I can add a new book here, whatever I want to name it. You know, I can name whatever I want to name it. I'll go there. I'll have to, of course, restart to refresh. So that's the problem. We're going to create a refresh function, and we can actually create it in this lecture alone. So let's create a refresh function. And to refresh, we'll just call it refresh everything, refresh books. And whenever you press on a refresh button, you wanna refresh all the books that are present in there. So what I need is a table, or I can do it for all of them at once. So what do I mean by that? Whenever you press one button, you wanna press that button specific table. So I will do the same thing here, self, and call the table. And I will just load things like this. Load issue table or load which table. Here, what I want to do, I want to also load all books table. What this will do is this will load all the tables, which is very odd. When you're pressing one button, everything updates. Or you can choose not to create a function. You can add it right here as well. Let me show you how. So whenever I press a button for, self dot, let me show you what I'm trying to say. This button right here, when this button, which is the refresh issued button, refresh issued, is that what it's called? It's called refresh issued. And whenever this is clicked, I can connect it directly to, well, this. Just that's it, issued table, excuse me. And I can do the same thing for all others. I can do the same thing for this one. Unissued table, when you click on refresh unissued, click. Yes, and when there are all books, I can click refresh, and it's called refresh button. So use comments, all is called refresh button. And I can, well, load all books table. Let's see if it actually works. If I, well, just add a new book, and of course there's one more thing that I'm going to do here. Nothing happens. Refresh, refresh, it was right here. When I add a new book, I also want to refresh it, so I can do the same thing that I did here with these two, loading unissued and issued. Whenever I add a new book, I can do the same thing. I can refresh these two together. Pretty neat so far. So far so good. Remember that this can also be changed. So let me show you what I'm trying to say here. All books function will also be refreshed whenever I want to refresh it. So if I delete this, this is not refreshed. Press refresh, it gets refreshed. So that's about it for this one. In the next lecture, we're gonna talk about search by ID. Well, why do it in the next one? Why not in this one? Because this one is a little bit different. It's not that different, but it's gonna take, it's not that different. You've already made the function called find book, so we'll deal with this specific topic in the next lecture. So I'll see you in the next one.